Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Canopy Cafe. I'm Ben Soley. I'm the engagement director at Canopy, Kentucky. We are an organization that helps businesses incorporate a social or environmental mission, and we do that to have a positive impact on people, planet, and our future. And we have office space in Portland neighborhood of Louisville, which was always a dream because we had all these incredible community leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs stopping by the office, and we would have these casual conversations that often, were really nourishing and shared ideas around good business. And we missed those, of course, now in the pandemic times and staying healthy at home and, social distancing. So we started up the Canopy Cafe, which is our effort to continue sharing those ideas. And today on the show, our guest is Larry Horn, the executive director of Amplify Louisville, talking entrepreneurship, leadership, support for founders, and that'll be a really great conversation. But first, and now, as always, Canopy's product director, Alex Page, is going to join us to share highlights from the good business news. Hi, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I didn't nail your job title. You're product specialist, right?
Yes, technically Canopy certified program specialist, so that works the same way.
Yeah, I mean that's our only product that we have at the moment, but it's exciting. It's coming this fall.
Yeah, it is exciting. Stressful but exciting.
So true. Well, what you got for us today?
All right. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is 3 big companies, you've heard of all of them, Walmart, Target, and CVS, have teamed up to reinvent single-use plastic bags. So they recently announced that they're a part of the Beyond the Bag initiative, which is a plan to reinvent single-use plastic bags. The 3 companies are leading the initiative with Closed Loop, which is the same investment firm that helped McDonald's and Starbucks find an alternative to their single-use cups last year. With Kroger and Walgreens have also signed on to this initiative with Walmart, Target, and CVS. With a $15 million in promised investments, the partners are inviting entrepreneurs and investors to pitch new ideas to replace the 100 billion plastic bags that are still used in the United States every year. So why do we need a better bag? Replacing single-use plastic bags is particularly tricky. Most are still made from virgin plastics, produced as a byproduct of refining oil. They're cheap, they're plentiful, and in essence made from waste left behind by fossil fuels, but they can last for up to 20 years before breaking down, and they have the propensity to end up in our waterways. So meanwhile, most recycling facilities across the US also don't accept plastic bags because they're difficult to sort and tend to clog machines. So even recently, it's been even more of an issue with COVID-19. So hopefully whatever ideas that the Beyond the Bag initiative, they'll get to soon. And I think they're going to be tested over the course of like 3 years. So hopefully we'll have a better option for bagging at some of these larger retail stores sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and what do you think the benefit to stores is transitioning away from single-use plastic bags?
Specifically for companies themselves, I think it's going to attract consumers who are interested in the sustainability space. I mean, it is just the right thing to do in general for our environment, but to make a business case for it, consumers that are, more eco-minded and are interested in creating a solution for these issues, they're more likely to shop at a store that, maybe they heavily encourage reusable bags, or they have these alternative options just in case they leave the reusable bags at home. So I just think it will lead to, honestly greater profitability because more people are going to be visiting those stores as opposed to ones that still use those single-use plastic bags.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talk a lot about the kind of moral justification for, having a, social or environmental mission or just being thoughtful about those things. But there's also like the business case. And, at some point, having these reusable bags in the ecosystem of consumers will probably reduce bag usage and hopefully reduce cost at some point. But also you've got all these people reusing their bags and carrying them out in all these different settings, which probably companies are going to brand. So there's definitely opportunities there for sure.
Definitely. And even just with the reusable bag thing right now, there are a lot of stores that you can't take them into because of COVID-19. So if this continues to be a trend, we're going to need a different solution, you know?
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah. All right. So the second news article that I have is about a report that just came out that stated 38% of Americans are currently boycotting a company of some kind, and many cite that it's for political or coronavirus pandemic related reasons. A substantial percentage of consumers who feel that a company is behaving wrongly are willing to boycott that business, according to a new report. The current coronavirus pandemic and recent protests for racial justice have given consumers even more of an incentive to express their disapproval, as they are among the reasons 38% of consumers are currently boycotting at least one company, up from like only 26% in 2019. So some key findings from a survey that they sent out to these consumers that they were looking into found the following things. One thing is 1 in 4 boycotting consumers say that they believe the company is mistreating employees in general, and 19% think the company is treating its workers unfairly specific to the coronavirus pandemic. So overall, 40% of consumers said that a company's mistreatment of its employees plays a huge role in their decision making to spend money on a particular product. Another finding was nearly a quarter of boycotting consumers said the company they're refusing to patronize has been accused of racism. A similar number of consumers said the diversity of a company's executive suite factors into their decision to spend money with that company too. A couple more things, and the reason why I'm reading off these key findings, it's just so interesting because sometimes we have a hard time finding that data to back up what, the business case for Canopy even, or just businesses needing to take care of their reputation in general. So hearing these key facts from a survey that was sent out to consumers is really, really helpful. Couple more is so something that's really interesting is the likelihood to boycott actually decreases with age. So about half of the Gen Z, like 51%, and millennials, 52%, are currently boycotting at least one company. But that number drops slightly for Gen X, which is only 37%, and then greatly for baby boomers, which is 22%, and the silent generation, that's 16%. So just as the age goes up, the likelihood that they're going to boycott decreases, which is a really interesting thing. And I think it just is another reason as to why, the new generation of consumers are caring a lot more about the reputation of companies and how they treat their employees.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And over time, you build loyalty with the brands that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
But it is really interesting to hear about this because, boycotting is such a specific action, right? It's saying we're absolutely not going to buy from that company until and if they do this action. But I'm sure there's a lot of more people that are just like, that company doesn't feel right, or is not someone that it's not me. Right. And this is something we talk about as kind of like brand association and, brand identity, and that's something that maybe beyond the scope of the survey, thinking about, gosh, like values alignment with your customers and especially your employees. When we talk about the big shuffling of the deck that we've got right now out there, where companies have let go of lots of people and maybe they're going to be rehiring soon, and they're going to be thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the middle of all that. And they're going to be thinking about, gosh, how do we attract that talent? Because suddenly we're going to be competing for that talent. Mm-hmm. That values alignment is going to be so important internally and externally. So that's a really, really important survey. We'll make sure to share that out on Canopy's social media channels.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's what I have for today.
Well, thank you so much for joining in and bringing us some highlights from the good business world. We really appreciate you, Alex.
Of course. No problem.
All right, bye. All right. We have Larry Horn coming to join us from Amplify Louisville. He is the executive director there, really to talk about supporting founders through this pandemic, through these challenging times, and helping Louisville and the region develop its entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we're really excited to talk about that. And I'm going to bring on my cohort, my double Ben here, Canopy's development director, Ben Smock, to join me in this conversation. Hey there, Ben.
Hey, Ben. How you doing?
Doing all right, buddy. It's Thursday, and The clouds are keeping the sun from getting things too hot here. Really excited for our conversation today with Larry Horn. We're going to bring him on the Canopy Cafe now.
Cool.
Good morning, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Let's see. I can get you going here.
Yep, there we go. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how's it going? I mean, the double bins. I'm pretty lucky this morning.
Yeah, we like
bonus
to
bins, man. We're just pulling out all the stops for our esteemed board member. You know.
My lucky day. My lucky day.
That's an
No, it's
awfully
good to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
That's an awfully large coffee mug you got there.
It's a busy day today, so got to get fueled.
It's all about those coffee reserves.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Well, just as a starting off point, tell us about Amplify Louisville and
Sure.
kind of how it's come to be now and what kind of work y'all are doing.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for that. So Amplify, we're an entrepreneurial support organization that is funded by KOI Innovation. And what we're really focused on is we look at early stage founders that are starting businesses that are tech enabled, scalable, and they're in that range from napkin sketch, early stage, like garage idea, to I'm going to raise a $5+ million round. We really want to support that area. And we're also very agnostic to industry. In addition, we do have a focus on non-traditional entrepreneurs. I mean, how do we help those folks from marginalized communities? Maybe they're inside of a corporate, maybe they're a veteran. How do we help those others that maybe has not seen entrepreneurship as a path, but something that we can introduce them to and see if that is a new path for them? Because I always say, I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, even 10, 15 years ago, but here I am now, 4 businesses later. So that's what Amplify is working on. How we got here, I know one of the things that in the community, if you look over the last 20+ years, there's been a really great evolution and a lot of work by a lot of really smart people in the community. And that starts back with Enterprise Core at GLI and the work that Mark Crane, Bobby Fieri, Tendai Cherisika, Lisa Bajornis did. Recently, there was LEAP, which was the new iteration through the governor's office that had healthcare focus that is still going. This is one thing I want to make sure everyone knows. LEAP still exists. They just dove really heavy into the healthcare vertical. And so they're supporting founders that are, again, early stage, but they're going to unicorn. They're like, how do I help Ben Smock's company IPO when he's ready, right? So focus on healthcare, and we are agnostic to that industry for the community. So we look at it that way.
Just so you know, I don't think we're ready to announce Ben Smock's company yet.
I don't think it's within the healthcare industry. It's a fashion idea, right, Soli?
Yeah, it's in the fashion realm.
Look, my goal is to unplug founders, right? Like, I'm glad I didn't even know that was a thing, but Ben, now we have to talk. So
yeah. I'll let you know when it's ready for the Larry Horn conversation. Not quite yet.
I'm here for you. I drank free bourbon.
Perfect. That's the best kind. It's the best kind. So Larry, tell us about this. The importance of supporting entrepreneurs, especially with everything that we see in the global pandemic and how difficult it can be in general for entrepreneurs to get off the ground, and with this added complexity that we see with the economic struggle and the global pandemic. So tell us about how you're working through that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that you've probably seen some of this come up in different places, but some of the greatest advantage or greatest technologies or greatest companies have been born out of pandemics. I think that as a community, we have to look at our founders and realize that there are different buckets of founders in our community right now. That's something that Ben Soli and I were talking about a little bit earlier, which is, there are some founders that are absolutely crushing it right now. And that's because they have a technology or they had a business that was perfectly situated or to be used for working at home or virtual or just not having to see each other. And then there's companies like you had Ali Trutman from Wicked Sheets on recently, which is pivoted their business to make face masks. So there's a good bucket of entrepreneurs that are actually doing pretty well. But and then there's on the other side of that spectrum, right? There are some entrepreneurs that were in the middle of a fundraising round. That their business requires in-person transactions or in-person communication. Those are really struggling. Some of them are looking at their business of putting it on pause or trying to figure out how they keep going. But the huge swath in the middle really is they have to look at their business in a really unique way. which is, does my value proposition look different? What does my financials look like? Again, Soli and I were talking about the fitness of businesses. I think you guys talked about that with Allie, which is you need to realize where your finances are right now, because you're gonna have to be nimble and you're gonna have to be smart. And whether you have to lay off employees or whatever that looks like, you're thinking through that process as, I don't know about you two, but I thought this was going to be 2 months, right? By June, I was going to be drinking beers with you guys and we're all going to be next to each other. But I think as this continues to extend out, those cash reserves for that middle section of entrepreneurs are starting to run low. So as a community, how do we do this, right? One of the things Amplify is trying to help focus for our community supporting entrepreneurs is, the best source of revenue for a company or income for a company is customers. Like, find it, like, the whole buy local thing that we've been talking about for 20 years, like that's still really important. And look at your local entrepreneurs and your local startups. And it doesn't have to be just the tech enabled folks, right? But that's who we serve. But be a user of someone that's trying to build a product locally. If you are a customer of a certain size, be a pilot customer. Let them test their product on you, especially now as they've probably tweaked and pivoted their product and idea through the pandemic. Like, they probably need good feedback about what that actually looks like and does that serve the issues and problems that companies are having now. So that's ways. And then, this fourth bucket, which is something I alluded to a moment ago, I think this is a really great time to unplug new founders. I've been using this as my example through COVID. If you were the bartender at the restaurant that got closed down or couldn't serve, and you've always had this really cool device that you use behind the bar, but never knew really, like, it was just you used it, and everyone's like, I love that. Where can I get one? Well, I made it. Well, let's unplug that guy or gal. Let's help them build a business around that and see if that's a product they can sell. And there's great programs in town through Story Louisville programming, through co-starters, where they're actually helping those type of potential entrepreneurs think about these ideas they may have always had, like Ben, your fashion idea, whatever it is, like that's a process you have gone through and shaped that out. I want to hear about this. If we
you're
have
gonna
time,
have to ask Soli and El Shaddai about it.
Okay. We're advising.
We're advising. Okay, gotcha. But so, anyways, I know, long answer to your question. You guys both know me well. I do this, but I think the community always has a responsibility to support the companies that we have locally. And the early stage companies, I think that there's this stereotype and stigmatism that startups, especially in your own backyard, they don't know what they're doing, right? They knew Larry when he was 20 and he wasn't that smart and he didn't know how to run a business, right? They don't know me 20 years later. There's an interesting thing. We have a really interesting group of entrepreneurs here that do speaking engagements and have products that sell like gangbusters outside of Louisville, but don't sell well here or aren't used here. And I think that's a really interesting problem. So circling back around, like, one of the things Amplify really wants to focus on is first customer initiatives, opening up corporates and other stakeholders around the community that don't necessarily see themselves in Nulu, right? They're not like, I don't like that Nulu crowd, but really this is a community thing. And then rising tide raises all ships. I mean, there's a bunch of data that we could talk about from Kaufman and Techstars and all these organizations that show a healthy, vibrant entrepreneurial community. It just trickles through everyone, and all businesses and all services grow from that.
Yeah, and thinking about the fitness of, well, the health of the community as it's connected to the fitness of companies and corporations. We've seen a lot of that right now, where they weren't, the companies themselves they didn't have the capacity to take on the load of caring for their employees and customers during this pandemic, which of course is unprecedented in so many ways. Sure. But there's also something to be said for like the fitness of the actual founders and the leadership of these companies. Can you speak a little to that?
Sure. Yeah. I always joke, like, if my title was an executive director, it'd be part-time therapist and air traffic controller.
Right.
And a lot of that is like, as a founder myself, when you're already working 12, 15 hours a day, when you now don't have to leave your office to go home, like, those 15-hour days become much longer. And what I learned through some of my early conversations back in March and April were that a lot of these founders were stressed because of all the things that we just talked about, their business, their financial fitness, their fundraising goals, but then they're also locked at home in their office working all day long and not having that connectivity. So one of the events that we had in the last couple months was called The Grind. And it was a virtual 5K that was powered by Moolathon, which is another local tech startup here in town. And the goal of that was like, get outside, be active. I mean, I didn't run it, right? I walked it. But what was great is I was able to, see my friends that did it. We organized some groups where we did it socially distant. So we at least shout to each other that we were outside doing something. So I think I spend time also talking to founders. Not only do you have to, get your cap table ready for your next round, but how do you make sure you're unplugging, taking a little bit of time for yourself and not beating yourself up as much. And to do that, the first question is like, well, how do I do that, right? I love this. This is my ugly baby. This is all I think about. And I think a big thing of this goes back to one of my personal passions in the entrepreneurial community, which is connectivity. And that is have a support group. I promise you, 3 founders right now or 3 other friends also struggling with what we're doing. Talk, have a Zoom call, have the Zoom happy hours, right? Do those things and have conversation where you are connecting with people, even though you can't be next to them. And you're taking your mind off that business, because I always say a rested founder is a better founder. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of the things I try to encourage for the founders that I get a chance to talk with, and friends.
Yeah, that's good insight, Larry. And so, you have been involved with Canopy, basically since our inception. And so you're, intimately aware of our work and, the importance of, operating a business and, experiencing your growth through the lens of social and environmental sustainability, mm-hmm. really embedding that within your business model. So talk a little bit about, your work with founders and, helping guide them toward this, understanding of how important social and environmental efficacy is within their business model as they scale.
Sure. Well, I remember before it was Canopy. I can't remember what the name of it was before it was Canopy now. I think it was like Kentucky Do Good Business. I don't know. It was, but I always say so interesting this question, because it resonates with me personally, because the reason I got involved with Canopy is I was starting another business, and I was like, should I be a nonprofit, or, what should I do? And I met Scott Collins, right? CEO of Canopy. And he kind of talked through, he's like, it's okay to treat people well and do good and make money. I think, we talk about, we do need to take care of our employees, and we need all the things that you just talked about. But I think a lot of business people get stuck on this mindset. If I do that, then I'm reducing shareholder value, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what Canopy, one of the great things that you're focused on is redefining what shareholder value is. And that companies will be more profitable long-term if they take care of their people and they take care of their community. And I think that's a message you guys talk about that I iterate back to founders. Now, the cool thing for me is that when I talk about that, I get the chance to bake, I always say, bake it into their DNA from the get-go, right? Like, as you're building out your model and you're building out your
cafe thing right now with Larry Horn.
Oh, hey, Ben, you're not on mute.
You're not on mute. I'm glad he said, at least he didn't say that, unkind word, Larry Horn. We got that. But the cool thing is, again,
Canopy's founder Scott Collins was calling. So when Scott calls,
he probably
pretty much the only person I would answer for other than my wife right now.
He heard me talking about him. I think
that's what it is.
But anyways, how do you bake this into into the plan early? And by the way, make it okay. I think that's the thing. A lot of founders, when they're first starting, it's not like they have it all figured out. They've read all the books, they've seen the movies, how you're to act and what you're supposed to do. And most of them, especially of a certain age, it was never about taking care of people. It was I've got a boat. I just got a G6, right? And how do I get there as fast as possible, no matter what path I have to get to that point? Mm-hmm. And I think now the movement that you are focused on is, hey man, you can still have that G6, but why don't you take your employees with you, right? Along that journey, along that path, and make sure you're enriching their lives, not just financially, but emotionally. You're taking care of them. They want to come to work, because that's going to make your product, your business, your model, you as a corporate community citizen, all better. And that's what I love about Canopy. And that's why I'm engaged with it. And I think, again, founders we are luckier than the $20 million company that's been built for 20 years. We can bake it in day one. And I think that's the thing that, from Canopy standpoint in the entrepreneur community is the most impactful part.
Maybe we should start a Facebook group called Baking It In, or like a founder baking where we like share recipes and ideas for baking in good business practices.
You know, I say, like, again, I always tell this story about Canopy. I mean, I met with Scott, you know, I've got 2 degrees from a business school, like maximizing shareholder value was pounded into my brain for a lot of years. And it took 1 or 2 conversations that also matched the way I felt personally to say, no, that's actually, you can maximize shareholder value, but you can also take care of your people because you're maximizing that value long-term. And, you know, as you guys are finding from your data, you're building more sustainable, you know, longer lasting businesses because you have employees that stay, employees that are engaged, and you have happy customers because of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can tell that Larry's been involved with Canopy for quite a while.
It's so true.
I love it, man. I love you guys.
Touched on it a little bit, but you know, for Amplify and just for the greater like entrepreneurial community, what do you think the real opportunity is right now?
I think the real, I mean, with the pandemic or just in general?
Well, I mean, I think everything is contextualized by the pandemic right now, and you know, obviously things that were less of a priority before are now suddenly floated to the top. You know, whether it's, you know, safety and health among your employees suddenly becomes like priority number 1 if you're going to be able to operate, as well as, you know, food access, local food access suddenly becomes a thing because transportation turns into a challenge. So, you know, for entrepreneurs and your community specifically, like, what do you feel like are the real opportunities right now?
Yeah, no, I think my first thought to that is the one thing I love about humans is during crisis, we all tend to come together a whole lot easier than before. And I think that, as we talked about in the beginning of this conversation, which is building companies and building a vibrant ecosystem takes a village. You may have heard me say this before, like, oh, Amplify is here to lead, partner, and support other organizations or other programs. We can't solve the problem by ourselves. Like, it's going to take the inclusion of corporations, the inclusion of universities, the inclusion of other organizations around town where we coordinate and collaborate to support the founder. So what makes during this time, I think what our greatest opportunity is, everyone's kind of looking like, how do we help each other? How do we help each other through this? And virtually makes it easier in some aspects because it's easier to schedule a 30-minute Zoom call or whatever that might look like. And everyone's kind of eager to have that conversation because they're trying to say, like, I know we need to solve this problem. You know, how do I can't do it. My resources are limited now. And I always say supercharge with people make fun of me. I think one of Amplify's biggest responsibilities is to supercharge the activities of those organizations that have been doing it for a very long time. And they've got they just need extra bandwidth, resources, thought leadership, sometimes sprinkle some dollars in it if we can, like whatever that looks like. So the opportunity is the ability to lean in to the community, specifically for the entrepreneurship community that I'm talking about, and, you know, have these support structures that we can wrap our arms around founders and guide them through this time.
Yeah. Well said. You know, you always speak to the importance of connectivity, and it's evident in everything that you've laid out here. And I think that's, you know, so well aligned with what we're building too with Canopy, and, you know, making sure that entrepreneurs, consumers, everybody, diverse audiences throughout the state are aware of, you know, who's doing what. They're aware of companies that have this elevated commitment to social and environmental wherewithal, and especially during difficult times, right? Like, I want to know that Allie Trutman and Wicked Sheets are pivoting their business model to provide very necessary resources for people during the global pandemic. And, you know, you see all these other companies showing up in unique ways. That connectivity and that, you know, constant narrative reinforcement is so important. And I think, you know, that's a way that the community can rally together and really just kind of wrap around these entrepreneurs and just make sure that their narrative is told, that their DNA that's embedded with social and environmental practices are communicated to the audiences, because that's how people are thinking more and more, right? That's how we're making these purchasing decisions, and that's, you know, I think it's gonna be the new way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and it's another opportunity to kind of on that point, Ben, is, as all these entrepreneurs now are re-looking at their supply chain, right? This is a time to clean up the supply chain if you can.
Yeah.
Because of all the interruptions, a lot of founders are immediately looking offshore to be able to source their product because it's cheaper and they're limited on resources. But it's a good time to look at that supply chain and clean it up. And I know that aligns a lot with what the Canopy model is you're thoughtful on these different ecological and economical pieces. I think that for the founder and the community and you leaning in, I think, again, that just goes back to my ask of anyone that's watching or will watch this in the future is, be a supporter, be a user, be a cheerleader. I think one thing that I'm really focused on for the next year is being a story. Like, we need to be storytellers. I think that, one of the things that when I talk to people that are not from Louisville or they're traveling in, like, they're always surprised at the startup scene that we have. And I think we need to be able to tell those success stories of Allie's, of the other folks here in town that have pivoted, of the rabbit holes who made hand sanitizer, of those companies, and not just tell it locally, which is amazing, but make sure our region knows, make sure the country knows. So, I've got a really good advisor that I use for Amplify, and she's from the Valley, and she's like, I didn't even know you guys had startups here. And so storytelling and again, and what that does for the founder and does for the company, especially if they're focused on doing good, is it reinforces their decision and it brings them more customers because people do, to your point, people do want to buy those products from companies that take care of their people and do it in a clean way. So be storytellers, be advocates, be users, support the community in those ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautifully said, because to create a sense of togetherness in the community, we really need to help tell each other's stories and do those in a way that is very human. Obviously, there's a lot of aspects to business that need to be, taken care of and formalized, but really, like, times like this during the pandemic and so much challenge, the real like purpose of a business becomes quite clear and really essential. And businesses without purpose right now are kind of maybe wandering around being like, well, what's all the struggle about? Like, what's this for? What's this all leading up to? And why would people care if my business exists or not? And why do I care if my business exists or not? And so having a purpose, aligning that with all of your, leadership and your culture, your governance, and whatever external impact you're aiming to achieve is like essential. It's as important now as it is ever. And purpose and sharing your purpose is an act of storytelling. You tell it with conversations, you tell it with your products, you tell it with the events that you put on, the store if you have one, and part of that is the safety and health. Like, how do you make people feel welcome, safe, and all those things? And that is all. It's all story. It's all story.
Well, and to add one of the pieces of that storytelling, to add to your point, is your employees. Like, what better evangelists and storytellers can be your employees? One of the things I have seen through the pandemic has been those companies that didn't have purpose or didn't have mission and who weren't taking care of their employees, they're the first ones to lose those employees. Those are the first ones to say, I'd rather file unemployment than stay here and help you fight to keep this business open. Those are the ones that didn't, because their community or their neighborhood or their customers were like, well, I don't really know what they stand for, so I'll move and look someplace else. I mean, those are the ones I think are struggling the most because, we as a personal consumer, like, I consume things from companies that I believe in, especially if I know the founders. And if I know the founders and it's not a positive feeling, I don't typically buy from them. And especially if their employees come and talk to me about their work conditions and, how they're being treated, like, that is just, icing on the cake to not be a consumer of those places of business.
Right.
So true.
That is true.
So, yeah.
So, Larry, you have massively important work going on with Amplify, and where can people go to learn more, to find out and to get involved about what you're working on?
Sure. We just did a rebrand in the last week. And so we're starting to get everything launched. The website's the best place to go, amplifylouisville.com. You'll see links to our social media accounts. You'll also very soon be able to join our newsletter, which will go out weekly and share stories of the community, ways to get engaged. And then also, I think what's important for an organization like mine, also see how we're doing. You know, I think one of the things from a community, if you're not intimately engaged, is like, well, I hear about it, but I don't know anything about it. Or what are they actually doing? What's that crazy guy Larry do over at Story Louisville? And I think we're going to try to be super this is what the work you guys talk about. We're going to be really transparent about the work that we're doing and the founders that we're connecting and supporting, and hopefully these regional and national stories. And then also, so doing those pieces, so they can come and find us, amplifylouisville.com, other social links there. Come back and visit as we continue to launch. We'll have a press release going out hopefully by the end of the week. And then, you know, as when we're able to do hugs and high fives again, come to an event. You know, even if you're not an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, like there's probably something in your past and your background that will be helpful to another entrepreneur in that room. You know, so I think that those are the ways to get involved. Those are ways to find us, please. And then, of course, always email me, Larry@amplifylouisville.com. It might take me a little bit to get back to you, but I promise I will.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Canopy Cafe and for all your support in the community, for existing business owners, founders, and you know, folks that have even yet to start their ventures but are meeting with you, and it's all percolating. Percolating. Either how, we appreciate
I trust you.
And look forward to seeing you in person and having that beer sometime.
You got it, man. Well, I thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for the good work that you're doing through all of this. I'm sure everyone that's watching is following you already, but you're doing really great, impactful work when people need it the most. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Larry. We are definitely trying. So we'll see you soon, I hope.
Okay. Thanks, man. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care, Larry.
Well, Ben, lots going on at Canopy. Of course, we just wrapped up our 27 campaign, right?
We sure did. Smashing success, you know, for this campaign. Ended up having 26 businesses actively participating to strengthen their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within the workplace, contributing to the 27 fund, and raised just shy of $50,000 and still going. So we might surpass that mark here soon. And then we have exciting announcements with the transition of this partnership being overseen and amplified, to use Larry Horn terminology, by the Bingham Fellows out of Leadership Louisville. And so we're really excited to see the concept of sustainable fund for Black-owned businesses and educational content as it pertains to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, kind of taken to the next level. So we're very proud of our work and excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah, and we are very focused on this kind of collective impact of businesses being able to align their social and environmental mission, and then, you know, when an issue comes up, really kind of rally them around an issue. And this was our kind of first experiment around that. And of course, there's a lot more work to do around racial justice in businesses and our community. And so that work will continue through the collective impact of these companies that have made these commitments, and we'll continue to support them. But we also do that on an individual level, like people that care about things. We want to help be a place to connect them too. So as individuals, if you want to show your support for the work at Canopy, you can grab the new t-shirt. It's available now on our website. It's Good Business is Anti-Racist. We've got some artwork by Nico Meredith, who you may have seen her work with the Louisville Vegan Jerky Company, as well as Louisville's Hound Dog Press, the famed Hound Dog Press. So you can grab those off the website. And while you're there, consider signing the Charter for Good Business, which is a really wonderful online document that shares the beliefs and values that we've discovered as we have conversations with businesses that are having a positive impact on people, planet, and our future. And we'd love for you to sign up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you believe in what we're doing, because we sure do, then yeah, putting your name to it means a lot to us, and it really helps us strengthen our narrative as we travel throughout the state. So, you know, it's important to sign your name to it. So, Ben, well, it's been a pleasure to co-host the Canopy Cafe with you.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, we will be back in everybody's feed next Tuesday and Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern with more conversations in good business. Thanks so much for watching today. See you next time. Bye.
See ya.